Hey folks, Triple Crown back, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a Turn 7, not Turn 8 summary of the Global War 1939 solo game. You can watch Hilltop's channel for an alternative, different version of what's happening. So the biggest difference are probably Japan held off in this game from doing its sneak attack, and Germany decided to build on the Atlantic Wall from the Allied invasion versus the Moscow crush. So the Allies did their D-Day invasion, which is actually the Americans and the British and the Canadians get to do a joint attack. And they decided to attack Normandy with about 24 ground units and a couple fighters, which can now scramble. So the British, as a non-com, they did not participate in the D-Day attack, can go after the Americans and land a couple fighters. So there is an airbase there, which the Germans should have destroyed. They did destroy. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of those guys there. So these are air bases in Bordeaux are actually gone, but they forgot about the air base up there. And there's another naval base that we forgot to destroy, and that actually one is in the Axis favored. So the Germans will have no problem. Probably next round they've got about 27 or 28 ground units, plus all of their aircraft. They can take out whatever was landed, or they could take a poke at this fleet here. These are all. This entire fleet is in the C zone here. There's about, with the scramble, there's about 36 units. I'm not including transports, which defend at 1. And the Germans, if they bring everything, their whole Air Force and Navy can attack with about 29, which they might do, haven't decided yet, because they have the pips, meaning their aircraft are going to attack at a higher value, and their submarines attacking jointly are a 5. And a lot of these units here are, submarines defending. There is 4 battleships and 1 coastal battleship, but you've got a lot of corvettes and destroyers which defend at 3 and 4, and so we'll see what the Germans do there. What would you guys do in this scenario? Would you push the Allies back into the ocean, or would you take out the fleet? Probably the fleet, but there's no guarantees, and the Allies have no follow-up navy, so that could be a problem for the Allies. Over here, going over here, the British are being successful in playing a little bit of a ping pong here in Greece, and holding on to Turkey. Now, last turn the Germans came down a little bit heavy and wiped out the British forces in Greece, so they're currently winning the numbers battle back here, but they are not winning the numbers battle up here in Western Ukraine, the standoff on the Eastern Front. Now the dice last round were hot on the defense for everybody, so the Russians did try to go into East Poland, and they got diced pretty hard. That one infantry killed a bunch of stuff. Actually, this aircraft is back here. I forgot to land. So yeah, the I-16s, which is the Russian fighter, they only attack and defend at a 5, not a 6. So they keep rolling 6s. So that has been an advantage for the Axis, that the I-16s are not fighting at full potential. So if the Axis want to, they can definitely drive the Allies out, which is going to be probably another couple rounds of amphibious landings here coming up from Cairo. Which is a battle. Even though the British are losing, they're happy to trade because they're killing German units and some Italian units that are not going to be ending up on the Eastern Front. So does that mean the Russians are going to be able to at least save Moscow? Well, they did receive, the Americans tried to send 20 IPP for Lend-Lease, and half made it. So that is nice for the Russians, who had cold dice trying to take Valkyrie. There was only 3 German units there, and they rolled, I think the Italian, I can't remember exactly, but the Russians went in with 6 ground units and an aircraft and 2 aircraft. And yeah, that's what remaining after 3 rounds of battle. They only scored 1 hit, and the Germans repelled the Russian invasion into Valpuri, which now, if the Germans want, they could take a poke at this factory in Karelia or go do a landing in Leningrad. Not sure yet what the Germans are going to do there. Over here, the KMT and the Russians have had a resurgence into China. They've liberated the Burma Road. The British aircraft have all landed here in Sichuan. This territory is worth 3, so that's at least worth 1 free guy per turn for the KMT. The British have a couple token guys here, and the CCP has been revigorated, but the Japan now, now that they have control of the flank up here, they could, with this armor here and this guy, take a poke at these 4-5 Russians there, but that's kind of a fool's errand there. That is a heavy tank there, so the Russians are taking this threat from the Japanese seriously. Japan did build some more fast movers this turn on the mainland of China and also down in Siam. And the naval base that the Japanese wanted was this one in New Guinea, because they are now in a position to project power towards Australia and New Zealand. So currently the fleet is over here in New Zealand, which, because there's a colonial factory, they did build a destroyer last turn there and a tactical bomber over here. And the British also can build 1 unit per turn, so they built a destroyer as well. So that's happening there. The Canadians, which they've been building a destroyer a turn up in Sea Zone 137 at the colonial factory up here. So those 2 destroyers are making their way south to link up with this ragtag Dutch, British, Australian, New Zealand fleet. And the Japanese here definitely have naval superiority here in the South Pacific. They're just biding their time before they go over here and take the clean up the money islands, but they definitely they're probably going to just leave their navy there and basically keep this pesky fleet over here. These convoy zones are starting to hurt the FEC, who's now down to 19 IPP per turn. They had, I think, 7 they didn't spend, so 26 to spend next turn, so that's a problem. So they cannot venture out too far now, and definitely if Japan wants to bring their naval transports back and start building heavily here, the Calcutta will definitely be under threat. So they can't get too brave here and push out too far. They're going to have to sort of stay 1 space away from home to make sure they can get back. Now Japan spent a bunch on Navy. They built a Yamato class battleship, and they reinforced Tokyo and built some other naval units and brought some other naval units back up with a couple transports. So now these fleets are almost even. So next turn, let's see what the United States does, but they're probably going to have to back up to see back to Sea Zone 133 or somewhere else, get out of the way, because the Japanese are probably going to be going to Sea Zone 125 and building more naval units now that their economy is about, I think they made over 90 IPP last turn. So that's good for them. That's a round summary. And I just want to comment here, I am continuing the game on despite the fact that I have some family matters happening in the background, which is a little bit tough for me. But just want to say that when you are doing a playtest game, especially 1939, via WhatsApp and YouTube, the turns take about 3 times as long. Believe it or not, by the time you're communicating and setting up your board and trying to figure out what your opponent's doing, which is very, very, can be very difficult and time consuming. So Bill has asked me to at least continue on for, so that there's this alternate universe happening over here to kind of see what happens, because we are trying to bring balance to the game. And yeah, just wanted to conclude there. So thanks. Yeah, the Italians here, they're building, infantry now. They're down to about, I think, 19 IPP. So Italians are pretty bleak, and we'll see what happens going into turn 8.